Story 1. I had a gap between my two front teeth. I came from a very impoverished family, so I could not afford braces like the other kids. Once I became an adult and started earning a decent income, I got Invisalign. Now I have nearly perfect teeth, but they still have their undesirable traits. Story 2. Being gay is interesting because I was 8 and not gay at that time. The funny thing is they said I was engaging in inappropriate behavior in the restrooms, yet there were never any other boys labeled as gay. So, I was supposedly involved with random invisible people. Children can be quite silly and sometimes unkind. Story 3. We lived in a wealthy area, and when the old man left, she had to get 2 full-time jobs. One as a waitress. She went from wearing fur coats and attending bridge clubs to cobbling together enough money to feed for children. Needless to say, we no longer fit in. To make it even more challenging, I got my first full-time job at 14, which meant no after-school activities since I took the school bus from school to my job. I don't regret any of it, though. It made me a lot stronger than my peers. Story 4. I was always kind and loving to everyone and was often called gay because that makes sense to kids, I guess. I'm not gay, but I didn't deny it either because, in my mind, that would be like saying being gay is wrong. So I usually just ignored them. People used to create fake messaging accounts to harass me with their friends, not invite me to parties, and make fun of me both behind my back and to my face. To any actual gay people reading this, I'm truly sorry if you have had similar experiences. Just know you are loved. Story 5. My lips and eating disorder. Meanwhile, the same people get lip fillers and post on social media about anti-bullying reminders. I mean, sure, but at least apologize for your past behaviors first. It feels performative. Story 6. Learning disability. I will never forget my experiences with Daisy Garcia from Hurricane Academy in Arlington, Texas. However, I also recognize that she was a child as well. Story 7. Being a band enthusiast. Suddenly, all those bullies wanted to be my friend when I became a touring musician after high school. Story 8. My weight, a cleft chin, my first name, my last name, the clothes I wore, and my socioeconomic status. I have moved on, and I have a great life. The only thing that bothers me are the people I may have bullied, either through weakness or complicity. There were kids who were of lower status than me, and while I don't remember any specific instances, I know I metaphorically punched down on them from time to time. Story 9. I was bullied because the bullies had serious psychological problems. That is always the only reason for bullying. Story 10. Bring white. I'm all Irish with red hair and ivory skin. I was often called names like Powder, Dough Girl, Carrot Top, and Ghost. The names were endless, and it still hurts me to this day. I won't wear a bathing suit, and I'm 55 now. It's sad. Story 11. What was I not bullied for? One thing that really affected me was kids who made fun of me for my parents smoking, as if I had any control over that situation. Kids would tell others not to hang out with me because my parents smoked. They would condescendingly ask why I didn't just tell my parents to stop. They would laugh, saying my parents obviously hated me since they didn't care they were harming me with their smoking. Many of those kids were smoking before we graduated high school. I was also mocked for my leg and arm hair when I was 9. No one else even shaved yet. But I had really dark hair and it was not sparse. At the very least, the girl who pointed it out the most had to bleach or pluck her mustache by high school. Story 12. When I was younger, I was very high-strung, cried easily, tried to please my teachers, and sought attention from my peers. As a teenager, I struggled with insecurities, feeling unattractive, and being overly clingy with anyone who gave me attention. I was the kid who thought we were best friends forever if you let me borrow a pencil. Yes, I experienced abuse at home, was expected to excel at everything, was often meant to be unseen and unheard, and desperately sought positive reinforcement and attention. Why do you ask? Story 13. I attended 12 different schools while growing up and faced bullying for various reasons, leading to frequent fights. I either started the fights or reacted when provoked, and I earned a reputation for not tolerating disrespect. However, by high school, I transformed into a laid-back individual, and my high school experience was positive. It's fascinating to reflect on how a child's mind can be shaped by their surroundings, almost as if I was bullied into becoming a bully myself. Story 14. I was small for my age and not very athletic. I also read several grade levels above my peers. There was a less definable characteristic that drew attention from the bullies. They could likely sense my shame, and if they truly knew me, they might have hurt me. It took many years before I was able to accept that I am transgender. Story 15. During my freshman year of high school, I was a softball pitcher on a year-round team and received a lot of attention as it was the school's first time having a trained pitcher. The sophomore baseball pitcher would shove me against the lockers and tell me I wasn't that great, claiming he would always be better than me, even though he played baseball and I played softball. Story 16. My hair, my freckles, the way I acted, the way I dressed, the music I listened to, the hobbies I had, my name, literally anything they could find to pick on me for. So pretty much everything about me, everything that I am. Story 17. Being smart, I went to one of those small towns where nobody leaves and everyone just gets married and has babies. I wanted to go to medical school, but they thought I was different. I also had braces, was short, somewhat overweight, and a bit unconventional. However, I believe I'm cool now. Story 18. I was bullied for the clothes I wore. As a tomboy skater girl, you can imagine the types of comments made by others. Story 19. Skin color is all it is. I was made to feel less than human for being dark-skinned. The number of people in this world with such a negative mindset is astonishing. Story 20. Bullies do not need a reason. The fact that you are present when they feel like bullying someone is reason enough. There is no avoiding it because it does not stop when you leave school. Supervisors bully. Colleagues bully. Neighbors bully. The only solutions are either to fight back in a way that humiliates the bully or to learn how to become completely immune to it. Neither option is particularly easy, but both are possible. It does improve as a fully independent adult because the option to simply roll your eyes and walk away always exists, even if it can be financially painful if you are not prepared ahead of time. So get prepared. Sometimes your mental well-being demands that you burn bridges. Just ensure you have another way to cross the river before you set one on fire. Story 21. I didn't break 100 pounds until high school. People used to take their aggressions out on me because they thought they could get away with it. My defense was my manipulation skills. I'm a social chameleon. I can blend in with any group. I would find the biggest, toughest person I could and become his little brother. I will never forget what Darian did for me regarding David. David was a football player, probably close to 180 or even 200 pounds to my 100. He physically took my iPod in the hallway and did the typical, "What are you going to do about it?" Naturally, I was angry, but knowing that I would be overpowered, I yielded and said nothing. I thought about how I could get my iPod back. Should I steal it? Should I tell someone? Then it dawned on me. There was this big individual named Darian in first period physical education. He was as tough as they come but also a bully. Long story short, I figured out his weakness. Food. I bought him a few random desserts at lunch and sat next to him. I essentially bribed him with those desserts. I offered him the treats in exchange for getting my iPod back. Not only did he retrieve the iPod, but he ended up taking everything. My backpack, wallet, and phone. Story 22. Being a preteen mom, I recently turned 13, but I got pregnant at a very young age after starting my first period. Not by choice. Story 23. Having a wealthy parent. I attended a new school and got along well with everyone. After 6 months, my stepdad dropped me off in his Aston Martin. I lost about 70% of my friends that day. I had absolutely no idea why until I was older and realized it was pure jealousy. Story 24. Being British in America. I contributed to the issues that led to the American Revolution. I also played a role in the suffering of many Native Americans. Additionally, British forces invaded numerous countries around the world. Although I wasn't born during that time, I feel as though every problem caused by the British in the past is somehow my responsibility. Story 25. Being adopted, having frizzy curly hair, braces, acne, and glasses, Middle school me was really struggling. Story 26. Pale skin and red lips, and also for defending and helping a disabled child. I felt a bit awkward too because my family was going through very difficult times when I was in primary school. Story 27. I was a volunteer firefighter and emergency medical technician in high school. I wouldn't say I was bullied, but I definitely received criticism for it. We were a very sports-oriented school, and they couldn't see why I wouldn't do something that matters like play football. That all changed one day when one of the more popular girls was in an extremely minor car accident, and I was the one who got off the ambulance to treat her. The next day in class, she praised me as her hero and switched seats to sit next to me for the rest of the year. Many of the students who had made fun of my choice to volunteer ended up thanking me for helping her. Story 28. I had a stroke at the age of 6 that caused paralysis on my left side, which made me limp while walking. I also felt unattractive. Story 29. The way I spoke, the topics I discussed, the way I dressed, my posture, my behavior, my hair, my teeth, my glasses, my voice, my height, my physique, my interests, and the friends I kept. Pretty much everything. Story 30. My deafness. I can speak, but it sounds monotone. I was ridiculed a lot for it. Now, I am nearly mute except around familiar people. Story 31. I dressed differently and listened to heavier music. I was always nervous, so I talked a lot. I was unique like many kids and enjoyed horror. I felt trapped. Story 32. Grew up in a small town in Hawaii in the 1980s and 1990s, called Freckle Face and Blue-Eyed Devil among other things every day in high school. It was terrible. Story 33. Having anxiety and being shy still affect me sometimes, even though I have been out of school for 6 years. Children can be unkind. Story 34. Being quiet and sitting by myself, simply existing, or rumors that spread in 5th grade that I was a lesbian touching other girls. I hope all of my bullies received what was coming to them. Story 35. Talking white. We all learn proper English in school, but few integrate it into their speech. I feel bad for them. Also, do not move to the South. Story 36. Having friends is important. I was friends with 2 people and she wanted to be friends with them as well. However, she wanted them to be friends only with her. Story 37. Being a nerd and a redhead with freckles, I was pushed a few times, had books slapped out of my hands, and of course, I was called mean names or told, "You don't have a soul, shut up." Story 38. During my school years, I faced bullying for being short. I am female and 5 feet 4 inches tall. I had flared school trousers, which led to me being teased. I was called fat even though I was of average size, and I was judged for my appearance and for being a virgin. In Scotland, we have traditional Scottish dancing, and one boy in particular said that he didn't want to touch me. Ah, the nostalgia. Story 39. I have a large head and small features. This tiny individual got everyone to start calling me small face in middle school. It bothered me a lot back then. Now all I can think about is how this physically small person needed to make himself feel bigger by making me feel small. People project their biggest insecurities. He probably had the smallest insecurities, and that makes me laugh now. Story 40. I attended a challenging school where each day felt like a real-life safari hunt, constantly targeted simply for being alive. Story 41. I have been bullied all my life, but one of the worst experiences was having a seizure on my first day of school, as I am epileptic. After leaving for a month to recover, I discovered that everyone was making fun of me and referring to me as seizure girl. Even after graduation, I was still called that name, which led me to attempt to take my own life multiple times. I eventually got into a fistfight with my main bully during my senior year. The only reason I continued going to school was because my history teacher was one of my biggest supporters. Story 42. Being poor and having a frugal father. My most traumatizing memory was when I was in the 5th grade and my teacher openly asked me in front of the class why my father didn't want to pay the $15 for an agenda, which I would rarely use. The entire class laughed, and one girl called my father a cheapskate. Slowly, everyone started chanting, "Your dad's a cheapskate." I now experience financial anxiety and am obsessed with my appearance. trying to look affluent while also working hard. However, I would never boast or look down on those who are less fortunate, and I view immigrant and at-risk children and youth with compassion. Story 43. Being slightly overweight in the 1980s, I was about 10 pounds over my ideal weight. It was a challenging time with teasing from peers. Story 44. For being very thin and having a prominent nose, I had rhinoplasty in my late 20s, so I no longer have a prominent nose. I am now in my late 50s and weigh 170 pounds, which is a perfect weight. Most of the people who bullied me in school are now overweight. Story 45. Coming from a family that struggled financially, I often faced ridicule for not having fashionable shoes and clothing. Story 46. Being tall and shy, I was never picked for a dance, team, or group. Kids would pull on my underwear and touch my chest behind the blackboard every day. The teacher did nothing. Story 47. For being too tall, too lanky, and for having hair that wasn't straight or curly enough, naturally wavy. For having bad teeth from a childhood injury, for wearing braces, for using contacts or glasses, for having a big butt, and later for losing my butt when I lost too much weight, for being too skinny, too heavy, too mean, or too nice. It was relentless in a small town throughout school. Honestly, I had a serious goth phase just to scare people into not saying things to my face. It worked pretty well, and I developed a strong taste in music and art, which led me to pursue psychology and kickstart my career. It ended up being a valuable experience. By college, all the mean guys tried to date me, and all the mean girls were jealous of me. Their lives seem sad 10 years later, for the most part. Story 48. Being smarter than the bullies. Being able to do mathematics above a first-grade level. Speaking clearly without grunting. Having a mind of my own and not following the crowd. The same old reasons bullies pick on others. Story 49. I cannot provide specific details about individual experiences. However, if you have ever worked as an equestrian or in a barn, you may have an idea of what I encountered. The main bully was a severely mentally ill woman in her early 20s. Between the ages of 10 and 12, she consistently berated and verbally assaulted me over trivial matters. She also physically assaulted her mother, who was only slightly better, in front of young children. Story 50. My ethnic nose. The same individuals who bullied me were the first to approach me after I experienced a transformation. Story 51. For being rude, life has finally humbled me enough to realize I was the problem all along. Not necessarily that I deserved it, but that I could have dealt with people in a much better way. Instead, I stooped to their level and created much more trouble for myself than I needed. Story 52. Being a small, awkward, unathletic child in a somewhat rough neighborhood was challenging. However, I grew up, received an education, and moved far away. Now, I live in a beautiful home, have well-adjusted adult children, drive a German car, and travel the world. I researched where some individuals from my old neighborhood are now. Most did not move far and live in poor conditions. There is justice if you wait long enough. Story 53. Being half black and half white. Not black enough for some black individuals, I faced derogatory names from white people. Imagine being a kid and not fitting in anywhere. Story 54. I was often bullied for being smart and trying to succeed in school. This usually changed when they discovered I was also good at sports and could respond with insults just as quickly as they did. Story 55. Because my parents didn't have as much money as some other families in my town, I wasn't athletic and didn't care about being on any of the sports teams, and I also wore glasses. Story 56. I recently discovered that I have lip edema, which is an abnormal fat accumulation. All those years, it wasn't my fault. Story 57. I was bullied for being poor and small. I ended up punching my bully in the face and pushing him off a 15-foot pier into the water. He didn't bother me after that. Story 58. I am fat, autistic, and have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I enjoy reading and used to like drawing. Simply existing was a reason for me being bullied. Story 59. I have a limp due to cerebral palsy from a traumatic brain injury as a child, so I'm very easy to knock over. Kids in elementary school took that personally. Story 60. My father came to my high school dressed like Elvis from his Aloha from Hawaii concert and called me out in front of the entire school in ninth grade. Story 61. In grammar school, I struggled with sports. It wasn't all the time, but it was noticeable. However, this changed when I reached later grades in high school. I discovered metal music in 8th grade, and there were plenty of metalheads at my high school, so I fit in perfectly there. Story 62. Being me. I'm the super introverted and quiet person who is always alone and keeps to himself. I don't know how to socialize with others outside of work or playing video games. I also don't understand what my girlfriend sees in me. Animals absolutely love me, though. Story 63. Being overweight. Wearing glasses. Being shy and quiet. Feeling unattractive. Enjoying reading. I was reading at an 8th grade level when I was in the 1st grade, which apparently makes me a nerd. Being passionate about horses. Sorry, I found a hobby I love. I guess. Story 64. I was an overweight girl and I believed it didn't matter. They wanted me to believe I was less than I am. I grew up and lost weight, but I still don't think it matters. Not for me, not for anyone. Story 65. My nose has a bump at the top and looks like a toucan from the side. It's not big, just not a cute little button nose. Story 66. I was there. My clothes weren't from Massimo. I was chubby, nice to people, and had the audacity to read comic books. Story 67. To be honest, I don't know. I was bullied for just existing, for being socially awkward, weird, quiet, and unattractive. I was even bullied for the traumas I have experienced. But I've realized that nothing was actually wrong with me. It was them. The things I was called didn't even make sense. People bully others simply because they are hurtful individuals and seek satisfaction from harming another person. But what does a little girl think and feel about herself while this is happening? Story 68. My feet turn in due to a hip condition. Doctors told my family I would most likely never walk, but I figured it out and even ran track. I don't receive many looks while in motion, but the most comfortable way for me to stand is similar to the 5th position in ballet. Even as an adult, I hear people around me whispering, "Why does she stand like that?" Story 69. I want to add that since the first time I stood up to a bully, I step in when I see someone being bullied. I don't care why. I'm 68 now. Story 70. Too tall, wearing the wrong shoes, glasses, and not perfectly straight teeth. Still don't, but honestly not as bad as kids made it out to be. Being the new kid at school, having a lower income level, and having very fair skin. Story 71. Being the smartest and tallest in grade school and being assigned a seat next to the attractive girl in class. I remember the challenges of dealing with a bully. Story 72. Being a pale ginger with freckles, I found humor in the fact that I grew up to be attracted to redheads. Story 73. I was born with congenital glaucoma and needed 3 surgeries on my eye before I was 3 months old. This made the eye that had surgery very weak, so I primarily see with my other eye. Fast forward to my early school years, around the ages of 6 to 12, when I had to wear an eye patch to encourage my brain to use my other eye and strengthen it. Unfortunately, I was relentlessly bullied. Regrettably, I would remove the eye patch at school to avoid the bullying and put it back on when I was on the bus home so my parents wouldn't know. As a result, my eye has never improved, and I now have about 25% vision in one eye. Story 74. Being overweight, being poor, my birth mother leaving, and my grandparents having to raise me have all impacted my life. My birth last name rhymes with weighs a ton, and kids can be quite creative with nicknames. Story 75. I have a cowlick on the back of my head and very blonde hair. A group of boys used to say I had a bald spot. I also grew up poor, and some of my friends were in the same situation. That same group of boys called us the Dirties. I moved away between middle and high school. Years later, a few of them followed me on social media and had the audacity to message me, saying I was so hot now. Story 76. In elementary school, I was bullied by other boys because my best friend was very feminine for being a boy, having grown up with older sisters. He eventually came out as gay later in life. We all suspected he was gay, but their hatred toward him extended to me for being friends with him, which was really difficult. Despite that, I never stopped being his friend. We went through many experiences together in school. Story 77. My deafness, height, and skin color contribute to my identity. I excel at almost everything and have a pleasing appearance despite these attributes. Story 78. I was 6 feet tall and shaving at 10, yet I had a voice that could rival Alvin from the Chipmunks. I hit puberty a year later, but my voice barely changed until high school, where I was 6 feet 6 inches and 280 pounds, still talking like Alvin. Story 79. I was a country boy who moved to the city. I was smarter and better educated than most of my former colleagues. You can guess why. Story 80. Being mixed, I'm not purebred, so no group at school would accept me. As a result, I was an outcast who was targeted. Story 81. My last name reflects my naivety in trying to make friends in a new neighborhood as a child. Being a nerd and scoring high on exams, I often faced cruelty from other kids. I succeeded in school and enjoyed learning. I would have honestly preferred homeschooling. Story 82. Being overweight, about the size of my ears and nose. Not being manly enough, whatever that means. For not being good at soccer and for being alternative/goth in high school. That was a challenging time. I faced so much bullying about these things that I can't even remember how many times it happened. Now I'm 34, still a bit on the heavier side, but I have a wonderful wife and a beautiful son. So forget them all. Story 83. Having big lips can be a unique trait. Interestingly, the girls who bullied me for my lips are now enhancing their thin lips to make them appear fuller in their selfies on social media. Story 84. My romantic orientation, religion, race, medical history, and the fact that I am a woman are listed in descending order of importance, though other people have found different reasons. Story 85. What wasn't I bullied for? I attended Catholic school as a child while being half Jewish. I experienced sexual abuse, and word got out that I was not considered pure. I was overweight and felt ugly, so any movement I made with my body would be laughed at. My family would give me disapproving looks for my size. They wouldn't allow me to eat lunch or carbohydrates, no dessert, and no seconds on Thanksgiving. I felt so ashamed that my grandmother had me bathe in her swimming pool. I wasn't allowed to use the shower like everyone else. As I got older, people began to mock my ideas. When I expressed my desire to pursue education in certain fields, they would laugh. The same happened with my business ideas. I honestly don't see a future for myself. I feel ashamed and too scared to follow through with my existence. I harbor resentment towards people and myself because they never wanted to accept me or treat me like a human being. Now I'm nearly 30, feeling numb to life, and I can't wait for death. I am distrustful of anyone who treats me kindly. I will never sing or dance in front of anyone, let alone share my ideas. Story 86. What my father did for a living as a minister and the color of my skin. Not because I am white, but because I was excessively white and do not tan. Story 87. I was personally bullied by an American president and his loyal supporters who specifically targeted me for being a Canadian living and working in Canada, buying Canadian products, and supporting Canadian businesses. Any more questions? Story 88. Being a native child in a factory full of middle-aged and older white rural men in a red state, it never completely stopped, but I found satisfaction in being better and better paid than all 900 piece earners on both shifts. Story 89. Having a very southern female name, I was told I didn't like people of color and had poor manners. Yet I was born in California. Story 90. Overweight. Thank God I managed to lose most of the weight and become the new me. It was the darkest part of my life. Story 91. I was only bullied once in junior high. This girl pulled a ribbon from my hair, threw it on the ground, and stomped on it. I looked at her as if she was out of her mind. Story 92. Being alive, existing, and being an emotional child is a reality. I was constantly in a fight-or-flight mode on the inside, but on the outside, this manifested as freeze. I felt anxious and overwhelmed all the time. From kindergarten until my last year of high school, I was often bullied. The most common reason was simply existing. It was heartbreaking for me. Story 93. I cut my hair pretty short in 6th grade and looked just like a boy in my grade from behind. I received a good amount of criticism for that. Story 94. I loved the night sky, so I made black drawings. My teacher thought I was depressed or delusional. She introduced me to the class as special. Story 95. I have freckles and moles everywhere. I am from a different country, so I was called a dirty foreigner because it made my skin look dirty. Also, I have autism. Story 96. Once, for being the quietest in the class, a guy bothered me. It happened 2 or 3 times with just words, but when he tried to put a finger on me, I hit him in the face. I was suspended from school for 1 week. When I returned, an assistant who had witnessed the situation defended me, and after that, they didn't bother me anymore. Story 97. I had a brief period when I was bullied for being awkward, so I toned down my awkwardness and increased my assertiveness. I never looked back. Story 98. For being unique and free, if I felt like walking in a circle with my pants pulled up, laughing like SpongeBob, that is precisely what I would do. I also went through several phases of being very thin and was bullied for my appearance. Additionally, I was teased for looking very white in an area where most people are not white. Although I am of mixed race, I faced ridicule for not being able to speak English without an accent and was often excluded because of how I looked. Story 99. Being socially awkward. Being poor, even though my friends in middle school were barely better off than I was. Being unattractive. Classmates in high school spent 18 months pretending to be an anonymous girl in my class, claiming to be interested in me to extract embarrassing information to further bully me. I didn't give them anything because I kept asking them to add me on social media, and they kept dodging the question, so they eventually gave up. The friends mentioned above started a rumor that I was gay, and everyone just believed it, so for being perceived as gay, even though I am not. I began struggling with my mental health in high school, and they started bullying me for that as well because they thought I was faking it for attention. Their reasoning was that I didn't have any self-harm scars, I had good grades, and I seemed happy. Story 100. My hair, my name, my weight, my clothing choice, standing up for myself, how I played at recess, my choice of backpack, being poor, being in the band, how I stood being in choir, experiencing violation, being part of the LGBTQ community, being loud and not loud enough. Existing. Story 101. Having eczema was difficult for me. I never faced bullying at school, only from family or neighborhood children. Story 102. I often overdress for everything. I don't even know how to wear a t-shirt and sweatpants. I am an old soul and I get made fun of for it. Story 103. The lacrosse team captain's girlfriend cheated on him with me. I am also a girl. This caused a significant amount of chaos for me during 3 years of high school. Story 104. I was born missing 18 adult teeth and had red hair and freckles. I was the overweight friend in high school, a tall version of Penelope from Bridgerton. I hid my smile due to my teeth and still do 30 years later. Story 105. Weight, appearance, wearing glasses, my hobby of reading, being reserved, and many other factors. Story 106. My name is Martinez. In 2nd grade, some of the other boys came up with a rhyme that made me feel ashamed. It went, Martinez has a big fat penis. I'm glad that didn't follow me to the school I switched to in 3rd grade. Story 107. I was harassed for my weight. One girl was relentless, and I still think about her comments sometimes. Now, when I look back at pictures from those years, I realize I wasn't overweight. I just had curves that other girls did not. I wish I could be that weight again. Story 108. Dating the most promiscuous girl at our school. She was involved with many people and some had videos of her, including explicit images and recordings from parties. Boys would see me kissing her and ask how it felt. They would question whether I was enjoying the leftovers. Girls would laugh. Story 109. I was bullied in school and still experience it sometimes for being flat-chested. Boys would often make jokes about it, which ruined my mood because my body shape is different from other girls in my class. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.